The glass doors of Hansung Corporation's headquarters reflected the morning sun like 1,000 diamonds, almost blinding Yuna as she approached the building. She clutched her portfolio tighter, mentally rehearsing her responses to potential interview questions. At 28, this was her chance to finally break into the corporate world after years of freelancing as a graphic designer. Her black blazer was borrowed from her roommate, her heels were slightly too tight, and her resume had been printed at a convenience store just an hour ago, but none of that mattered. She was determined. The receptionist barely glanced at her before pointing toward the elevator. 42nd floor. Someone will meet you there. As the elevator climbed, Yuna tried to calm her racing heart. She had researched the company thoroughly. Hansung Corporation was one of South Korea's leading tech conglomerates, known for its innovative approach to smart home technology. The CEO, Kong Mi-ho, was notoriously private, rarely appearing in public. At 34, he had transformed his late father's struggling business into an empire within just 6 years. The media called him a genius, though some whispered he was ruthless. The elevator doors opened to reveal a stark white corridor. A woman in her 50s, impeccably dressed in a navy suit, stood waiting. Her expression was unreadable as she looked Yuna up and down. "You're punctual. Follow me." They walked past several conference rooms until they reached a set of double doors at the end of the hall. The woman knocked twice before opening them without waiting for a response. The office was enormous, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Seoul's skyline. But Yuna's attention immediately fixed on the man standing by the window. Kong Mi-ho turned around, and for a moment she forgot to breathe. He was tall, with sharp features softened only slightly by the way his dark hair fell across his forehead. His suit probably cost more than her entire year's rent. But it was his eyes that caught her off guard, dark and intense, studying her with an expression she couldn't quite decipher. "Mississippi Park Yuna," he said, his voice deep and controlled. "Please sit." The woman who had escorted her left without a word, closing the doors behind her. Yuna sat in one of the leather chairs facing his desk, placing her portfolio on her lap. Mi-ho didn't return to his desk. Instead, he leaned against it, arms crossed, maintaining that unsettling eye contact. "I'll be direct, Mississippi Park. I don't have time for traditional interviews. I need someone who can think quickly, adapt to unexpected situations, and most importantly, someone I can trust completely. My assistant, Mrs. Cho, believes you might be that person." Yuna blinked. "I'm sorry, I think there might be some confusion. I applied for the graphic design position in your marketing department." A slight smile crossed his face, though it didn't reach his eyes. "There is no graphic design position. That posting was a screening method. What I actually need is far more complex." He moved to his desk, pulling out a folder. "Tell me, Mississippi Park, what do you know about arranged marriages in corporate families?" The question threw her completely off balance. Not much. I know they still happen in some traditional families, usually for business alliances." "Correct. My grandfather, who still holds considerable influence in the company despite his retirement, believes I should marry. He's given me 6 months to find a suitable wife, or he'll choose one for me, someone whose family has connections he finds valuable. Someone I've never met and have no desire to marry." Yuna's confusion must have shown on her face because Mi-ho continued, his tone becoming more businesslike. "I'm proposing a contract marriage. 1 year. You'll act as my wife in public and at necessary family functions. In private, we maintain completely separate lives. You'll live in a separate wing of my home, receive a monthly allowance of 10 million won, and at the end of the contract, you'll receive a final payment of 200 million won. Additionally, I'll ensure you're placed in any position you desire within any company in Seoul." The numbers he was throwing out made Yuna's head spin. 200 million won was more money than she could earn in a decade. But this was insane. She'd come here for a job interview, not a marriage proposal from a stranger. Mr. Kong, I'm flattered, but I can't possibly. Before you refuse, let me tell you why Mrs. Cho recommended you specifically. He opened the folder, revealing what appeared to be a detailed background check on her. Yuna felt a chill run down her spine. Your father passed away 3 years ago, leaving significant medical debts. Your mother is currently living in Busan with your aunt, working 2 jobs to make ends meet. You've been sending her most of your earnings, which is why you're still living in a cramped studio apartment in Mapo-gu. Last month, you had to decline a freelance project because you couldn't afford the software subscription needed to complete it. Yuna's hands clenched into fists. You had no right to investigate me. You're right, and I apologize for the invasion of privacy. But I needed to understand who you are. You're not motivated by greed or social climbing. You're practical, hardworking, and from what Mrs. Cho observed during your preliminary interview with HR last week, you're genuine. Those are rare qualities. How did Mrs. Cho observe me? I never met anyone named Cho. Mrs. Cho is the head of my household staff. She was conducting her own interviews that day in the HR department, but she noticed you. She said you helped an elderly janitor pick up papers he'd dropped, even though you were running late. You also gave your lunch to a homeless person outside the building. Small gestures, but they revealed your character. Yuna stood up, anger rising in her chest. So you've been watching me, investigating my family, and now you think you can buy me because I'm struggling financially? This is incredibly insulting, Mr. Kong. For the first time, his controlled expression cracked slightly, showing something that might have been respect. You're right to be angry. This approach was calculated and cold. But let me ask you something. If you walk out of here now, what happens? You'll continue struggling, your mother will continue working herself to exhaustion, and that debt will hang over your family for years. I'm offering you a way out. 1 year of your life for financial freedom. And what do you get out of this? Besides avoiding your grandfather's arranged marriage. Freedom to run my company without family interference. My grandfather's choice comes with strings attached. A merger with a rival company that would compromise everything I've built. Plus, the woman he's chosen is. He paused, choosing his words carefully. Not someone I could tolerate even in a fake marriage. Yuna wanted to walk out. Every logical part of her brain was screaming that this was a terrible idea. But the practical part, the part that had been carrying her family's burdens for 3 years, kept her feet planted on the floor. 200 million won would clear her father's debts, buy her mother a small house, and give Yuna the fresh start she desperately needed. If I agreed hypothetically, what would the rules be? Miho straightened. His business demeanor returning. Complete confidentiality. No one can know this is a contract arrangement, not even our families. We'd need to appear as a genuine couple in public. That means attending events together, the occasional family dinner, and maintaining the appearance of a normal marriage. In private, we lead separate lives. No expectations of intimacy or traditional marital obligations. After 1 year, we file for a quiet divorce, citing irreconcilable differences. You receive your payment and we part ways professionally. What about dating? What if one of us meets someone during this year? Discretion would be essential, but I wouldn't prevent you from having a personal life. I only ask that nothing becomes public knowledge. The same would apply to me, though I have no intention of dating anyone. Yuna walked to the window, looking out at the city below. Somewhere out there, her mother was probably on her feet at the restaurant, serving customers with a smile despite the pain in her back. Her aunt had mentioned last week that her mom had been skipping meals to save money. I need time to think about this. I understand, but I need an answer by tomorrow morning. My grandfather is hosting a dinner tomorrow evening, and he expects me to bring someone. If you agree, you'll accompany me. Tomorrow. That's impossible. I'd need time to prepare, to figure out how to act, what to say. Mrs. Cho will help you with everything. She's an expert at navigating high society events. He walked to his desk and wrote something on a business card. This is my private number. Call me by 9 a.m. tomorrow with your decision. Yuna took the card, her fingers trembling slightly. And if I say no? Then I thank you for your time, apologize again for the investigation, and you leave with no hard feelings. I'll even ensure you're genuinely considered for the next graphic design position that opens in the company. She nodded slowly, tucking the card into her pocket. As she turned to leave, his voice stopped her. Mississippi Park, I know this is unconventional, but I promise you'll be treated with respect. This is a business arrangement, nothing more. You'll be safe. That night, Yuna didn't sleep. She sat in her tiny studio apartment, staring at the card, running through every possible scenario. She called her best friend, Yoonji, who she'd known since college. This sounds like something from one of those dramas you're always watching, Yoonji said through the phone. Are you sure this is real and not some elaborate scam? I looked him up. He's definitely who he says he is. And the money, Yoonji, it's real money. I could help my mom. I could actually have a future. But what about love? What about finding someone real? Yuna laughed bitterly. When have I had time for love? Between work and sending money home, I haven't been on a date in 2 years. At least this way, I'd be helping my family. Just promise me you'll be careful. Rich men don't make these kinds of offers without reasons. After hanging up, Yuna pulled out the folder of unpaid bills she kept in her desk drawer. Medical expenses, funeral costs, monthly payments that barely made a dent in the principal. She thought about her mother's voice on the phone last week, trying to sound cheerful while admitting she'd picked up extra shifts. At 8:45 the next morning, Yuna called the number on the card. Miho answered on the first ring. Mr. Kong, this is Park Yuna. I have conditions. I'm listening. First, my mother can never know this is fake. She's traditional, and it would break her heart if she knew I'd entered a marriage of convenience. Second, I want half the final payment up front, placed in a trust for my mother's care. The other half at the end of the year. Third, I want everything in writing, reviewed by a lawyer of my choosing. And fourth, if at any point this arrangement becomes harmful to my mental health or safety, I can exit with the money I've already earned, prorated by month. There was a pause. When Miho spoke, she could hear the smile in his voice. You drive a hard bargain, Mississippi Park. I agree to all your terms. Mrs. Cho will bring the contract to you this afternoon. The lawyer fees will be covered by me. Be ready at 6 p.m. I'll pick you up for dinner. Wait, today. I don't even have appropriate clothes. Mrs. Cho will handle everything. Just give her your address. The line went dead. Yuna stared at her phone, wondering if she'd just made the best or worst decision of her life. Mrs. Cho arrived at 2 p.m. with a team of people. A stylist, a makeup artist, and someone carrying garment bags. The older woman's stern expression from yesterday had softened slightly. Mississippi Park, we have much to do and little time. But first let me say that I'm glad you agreed. Mr. Kong is a good man, despite his rough exterior. He needs someone genuine in his life, even if temporarily. Over the next few hours, Yuna was transformed. The navy dress they chose was elegant without being ostentatious, fitted but modest. The makeup was subtle, enhancing rather than masking. The stylist did something magical with her hair, pulling it into a sophisticated updo that made her neck look longer. While the team worked, Mrs. Cho briefed her on the basics. Mr. Kang's grandfather, Kong Dae-sung, built the original company from nothing. He's 86 now, traditional but sharp as ever. His wife passed away 5 years ago. Miho's parents died in a car accident when he was 25, which is when he took over the company. He has a younger sister, Mincio, who's studying abroad in Paris. She's 29 and knows about your arrangement. His sister knows. Mincio insisted Miho tell her the truth. She's quite protective of her brother. Don't worry, she's supportive of this plan. She'll be at dinner tonight. At exactly 6 p.m., a black car pulled up outside Yuna's building. Miho stepped out, wearing a different suit from yesterday, this one charcoal gray. When he saw her, something flickered across his face, surprise perhaps, or appreciation. "You look beautiful," he said simply, offering his arm. In the car, he handed her a small box. Inside was a stunning diamond ring, elegant and understated. As he slipped it onto her finger, his hand was warm and steady. "We met 3 months ago at a charity auction," he said. "You were there with a friend who works in event planning. We talked about art, specifically the work of Park Soo-kun. I was impressed by your knowledge and asked you to dinner. We've been dating privately since then. I proposed last week during a private dinner at my home. The story is simple and unverifiable, which makes it perfect." Yuna nodded, trying to memorize everything. "What if someone asks about my family? Tell them the truth. Your father passed away, your mother lives in Busan. You work as a freelance graphic designer. Don't embellish or hide anything. The best lies are built on a foundation of truth." The Kong family home was in Songbuk-dong, a neighborhood where each house seemed more impressive than the last. The property was surrounded by walls, with a gate that opened automatically as they approached. The house itself was a perfect blend of traditional Korean architecture and modern design, with curved rooflines and floor-to-ceiling windows. Miho must have sensed her nervousness because he placed his hand over hers. "Remember, you're doing me a favor. If my grandfather becomes difficult, I'll handle it. Just be yourself." Inside, they were greeted by an older man in traditional hanbok. Kong Dae-sung was smaller than Yuna expected, but his presence filled the room. His eyes were sharp, taking in every detail of her appearance. "So you're the woman who's finally captured my grandson's attention," he said in Korean, his voice carrying the authority of someone used to being obeyed. "Come here, let me look at you." Yuna approached, bowing respectfully. "It's an honor to meet you, sir." "Manners at least," he said, though his tone wasn't unkind. "Tell me about yourself, young lady. Who is your family?" She told him about her father's work as a schoolteacher, her mother's family in Busan, her own education and career. She didn't mention the debts or struggles. He listened carefully, occasionally nodding. "A working girl. No wealthy connections, no powerful family name. Tell me, do you love my grandson, or do you love his money?" The blunt question would have thrown her off yesterday, but somehow, standing here in this moment, the answer came easily. "I respect your grandson, sir. As for love, I believe that's something that grows with time and understanding. But I can promise you that I would never use him for his wealth. I have my own career and my own goals." Kong Dae-sung studied her for a long moment, then turned to Miho. "She has spirit. Approve. Let's eat." Dinner was an elaborate affair, with course after course of beautifully prepared dishes. Mincio arrived halfway through, having come directly from the airport. She was stunning, with her brother's sharp features softened by feminine grace. She greeted Yuna with a warm hug that surprised everyone. "Finally, another woman in this family. I was drowning in testosterone," she said in perfect English, winking at Yuna. "Don't let my grandfather intimidate you. His bark is worse than his bite." Throughout the meal, Yuna found herself relaxing slightly. The conversation flowed naturally, touching on everything from business to art to current events. Miho played his part perfectly, occasionally reaching for her hand, refilling her water glass, all the small gestures of an attentive boyfriend. What surprised her was how natural it felt. After dinner, while the men discussed business, Mincio pulled Yuna aside onto a terrace overlooking the garden. "I want to thank you," Mincio said quietly. My brother told me everything about your arrangement. I know it's not real, but you're saving him from a nightmare. The woman our grandfather chose is awful, manipulative and cruel. She would have destroyed him. I'm just doing this for the money, Yuna admitted. I don't want you to think I'm some kind of hero. Mincio smiled. Honesty. I like that. But let me tell you something about my brother. He's been alone since our parents died. He threw himself into the company, never allowing himself to have a personal life. Maybe this fake marriage will remind him what he's been missing. Maybe you'll both get more out of this than you expect. That night, as Miho drove her home, they were both quiet. Finally he spoke. You did well tonight. My grandfather is notoriously difficult to impress, but he liked you. That makes everything easier. Your family is nice. I expected them to be colder, more judgmental. They're the best part of my life, even if my grandfather drives me crazy sometimes. Tomorrow we'll need to make some public appearances. Are you ready for this to become real? Yuna looked at the ring on her finger, catching the streetlights. As ready as I'll ever be. The next few weeks were a whirlwind. The engagement announcement made headlines. Photos of them at various events began circulating on social media. Yuna moved into the Kong family home, into a beautiful suite that was indeed in a separate wing from Miho's quarters. Mrs. Cho helped her navigate the complex social calendar, coaching her on everything from proper etiquette at business dinners to handling intrusive questions from the press. Despite their agreement to maintain separate lives, Yuna and Miho found themselves spending more time together than expected. They needed to appear as a real couple, which meant learning about each other, finding common ground. They discovered they both loved old movies, especially classic film noir. They both preferred tea to coffee. They both had a tendency to work too late into the night. One evening, about a month into their arrangement, Yuna was working on a design project in the home office when Miho came in, looking exhausted. He'd been in back-to-back meetings all day. Is it okay if I work here? My office feels too quiet tonight. She gestured to the other desk. Of course. They worked in companionable silence for hours. Around midnight, Yuna looked up to find him watching her. What? She asked, suddenly self-conscious. Nothing. I was just thinking that this is nice. Comfortable. I didn't expect that. Neither did I, she admitted. The problem started when real feelings began to creep in. It happened gradually, almost imperceptibly. The way Miho would bring her tea when she was working late. How he listened when she talked about her design projects, offering genuine insights. The time he flew her mother to Seoul for a visit, arranging everything without being asked. The night she found him asleep at his desk and draped a blanket over him. They were at a charity gala when Yuna realized she was in trouble. A woman, beautiful and polished, approached them with a predatory smile. Miho, darling, it's been too long, the woman purred, completely ignoring Yuna. We should have lunch soon to catch up. Miho's hand tightened on Yuna's waist. I'm afraid I'm quite busy these days, Sun. You remember we're engaged now. Oh, I remember. Congratulations on your arrangement. The way she said it made Yuna's blood run cold. Chen leaned in, her voice dropping. I wonder if your little bride knows about our history. How you used to call me when you needed company. Before Miho could respond, Yuna stepped forward, her voice clear and steady. I'm sure Miho has a past just as I do. What matters is that he chose me for his future. Now, if you'll excuse us, we have actual friends to greet. As they walked away, Miho looked at her with something like wonder. Thank you. She's been trying to get back together for years. It was nothing. Just part of the job, Yuna said, but her heart was pounding. The incident made something shift between them. That night, Miho knocked on her door, something he'd never done before. Can we talk? They sat in her sitting room, and for the first time he truly opened up. He told her about the pressure he'd felt after his parents died, the weight of expectations, the loneliness of being at the top. He told her about Soyeon, how their relationship had been empty and transactional, how he'd ended it because he couldn't bear the fakeness anymore. "The irony isn't lost on me," he said with a rueful smile. "I ended a relationship because it felt fake, and now I'm in a fake marriage. But somehow, this feels more real than anything I've experienced." Yuna found herself sharing too, telling him about her father's illness, the guilt she felt at not being able to save him, the burden of responsibility she carried for her mother. They talked until dawn, and when the first light crept through the windows, something fundamental had changed. They were no longer strangers playing roles. They were two people who understood each other's pain and loneliness. But with understanding came complication. Yuna caught herself thinking about him constantly. The contract said 1 year with a clean break. She'd been so focused on the financial security that she hadn't considered the emotional risk. And from the way Miho looked at her sometimes, she suspected she wasn't alone in this unexpected development. The situation came to a head at Minseo's birthday party. The celebration was held at the family home, with close friends and relatives. Yuna had spent weeks planning the perfect gift, a custom-designed sketchbook filled with illustrations of Minseo's favorite places in Paris. Minseo loved it, hugging Yuna tight. "You barely know me, but you put so much thought into this. Your family now, contract or not." Later, Yuna overheard a conversation she wasn't meant to hear. She'd gone to the kitchen to help Mrs. Cho when voices from the adjacent hallway stopped her. "When will you tell her the truth?" It was Minseo's voice. "I can't. We have a contract. She's counting on that money to help her mother. If I tell her how I really feel, she'll think I'm trying to manipulate her, to change the terms of our agreement." Miho's voice was heavy with frustration. "Maybe she feels the same way. Or maybe she's just good at her job. I can't risk it, Minseo. In 6 months the contract ends, and she'll be free to live her life. That's what she deserves." Yuna quietly backed away, her heart racing. He had feelings for her. Real feelings. And she hadn't imagined the way he looked at her. The lingering touches. The late-night conversations that went far beyond their contractual obligations. But he was right about one thing. The power dynamic was all wrong. She was living in his house, dependent on him financially. How could she be sure her feelings were real and not just gratitude or a response to his wealth and kindness? She spent the next week pulling back, trying to create distance. She threw herself into work, accepting freelance projects that kept her busy. She stopped joining Miho for their late-night tea sessions. She kept their public appearances professional but distant. Miho noticed, of course. He started working even longer hours, spending nights at the office. When they did see each other, the easy companionship was gone, replaced by awkward politeness. Mrs. Cho finally intervened. She found Yuna in the garden one afternoon, staring at nothing. "Would you like to tell me what's troubling you, dear?" "I'm fine, Mrs. Cho." "You're miserable and so is he. I've worked for this family for 15 years. I've never seen Mr. Kong smile the way he does when you're around. What happened?" Yuna found herself confessing everything, the overheard conversation, her own confused feelings, her fear of the power imbalance. Mrs. Cho listened patiently, then took Yuna's hand. "Love is rarely convenient or well-timed. But it's also too precious to waste because of pride or fear. You have 6 months left on your contract. Use that time to figure out if what you feel is real. And if it is, trust that he's strong enough to hear the truth." The opportunity came unexpectedly. Miho's business took him to Beijing for a week. He left without saying goodbye, just a brief text message about his travel schedule. Yuna spent those days thinking, really thinking about what she wanted. When he returned, she was waiting in his office. It was late, past midnight, but she knew his flight schedule. He looked surprised to see her, then wary. Is something wrong? Yes. Well, I don't know. She took a deep breath. We need to talk about what's happening between us. Nothing's happening. We have a contract. Don't do that. Don't hide behind the contract. I heard you talking to Mincio at her party. I know you have feelings for me. Miho went very still. You were eavesdropping. Accidentally. But it doesn't matter how I found out. What matters is that I need to know if it's true. He was quiet for a long moment, then moved to the window, his back to her. When he spoke, his voice was rough. Yes, it's true. I have feelings for you. Real feelings. But I would never act on them because of our arrangement. You need that money for your mother. I won't manipulate you or make you feel obligated to reciprocate. What if I already reciprocate? The words tumbled out before she could stop them. What if I'm falling for you too? And it terrifies me because I don't know if it's real or if I'm just responding to your kindness and security. He turned around, and the look in his eyes made her breath catch. Then we have a problem. Because I want nothing more than to cross this room and kiss you, but I won't risk your future or your trust. What if we made a new agreement? Yuna's heart was pounding so hard she could barely think. What if we finish out the contract as planned, but we're honest about our feelings? In 6 months, if we still feel this way, we make a real decision. No money, no contracts, just 2 people choosing to be together. And if you change your mind, if 6 months from now, you realize this was just proximity and circumstance, then we walk away as planned. I still get the money, you get your freedom from your grandfather's interference, and we both move on. But at least we'll have tried. At least we won't spend the rest of our lives wondering what if. Miho crossed the room in 3 long strides. He cupped her face in his hands, his thumb brushing her cheek. Are you sure? Once we cross this line, I don't think I can go back. I'm sure. The kiss was soft at first, tentative, as if they were both afraid of breaking something precious. Then it deepened, 6 months of tension and longing pouring into it. When they finally pulled apart, both were breathless. We're probably making a huge mistake, Miho said, his forehead resting against hers. Probably. But let's make it together. The next 6 months were both the easiest and hardest of Yuna's life. They continued to maintain the appearance of their contract marriage in public, but in private, they were building something real. They went on actual dates, getting to know each other without the pressure of performance. They fought, learning how to argue and reconcile. They introduced each other to their worlds. His business dinners and her art exhibitions. Yuna's mother visited again, and this time when she hugged Miho and called him her son, Yuna didn't feel guilty about the deception. Because it wasn't a deception anymore. But as the 1-year mark approached, the contract loomed over them like a shadow. Neither wanted to be the first to bring it up, to acknowledge that their agreement was ending. It was Kong Dae-sung who forced the issue. He called them both to his study one evening, 3 weeks before their contract was set to expire. I've been in business for 60 years, he said without preamble. I know a real partnership when I see one. I also know a fake one. When you first came to me, grandson, I knew something was off. No one falls in love in 3 months, not the way you described. But I saw potential, so I played along. Miho and Yuna exchanged shocked glances. The old man chuckled. Did you think I was senile? I approved of you, young lady, because I saw something in you that my grandson needed. Someone genuine, someone strong enough to stand up to him. I didn't know if it would become real, but I hoped. He looked at them seriously. The question now is, what are you going to do about it? That night, Yuna and Miho sat in the garden, the contract between them on the table. 3 more weeks, Yuna said softly. We could honor the contract. You'd get your money free and clear. Start fresh with no obligations. I don't want to start fresh. I want to start with you. She picked up the contract and held it over a candle, watching the corner catch fire. I don't want money for loving you. I just want you. Miho watched the contract burn, then pulled her close. What about your mother? The debts. I've been working. I've saved some money. We'll figure it out together. Or, he said carefully, you could accept the money as payment for the best year of my life. Because you earned every one by putting up with my grandfather, my crazy schedule, and my terrible cooking. She laughed through tears. Your cooking is truly terrible. Marry me again, he said suddenly. For real this time. No contracts, no conditions. Just us choosing each other every day. That's a terrible proposal. No romance, no planning. You're right. Give me 2 weeks. True to his word, 2 weeks later, Miho took her back to the place where everything had started, the 42nd floor of Hansung Corporation. But this time the office was transformed. Candles lit the space, and the windows overlooked a sunset that painted Seoul in gold and pink. A year ago, you walked into this office for a job interview, he said, taking her hands. You walked out with a contract that was supposed to be simple and temporary. But you gave me something I didn't know I needed: hope, companionship, and eventually love. I don't have a fancy speech prepared because you've heard enough of my corporate presentations. I just need you to know that you've become the most important part of my life. Will you marry me again, for real this time? This time, when Yuna said yes, there were no contracts, no conditions, just 2 people who had stumbled into love in the most unexpected way. The second wedding was small, just family and close friends. Yuna's mother cried through the entire ceremony. Mrs. Cho served as the matron of honor. Mincio gave a speech about how she'd known from the start that they were perfect for each other. During their first dance, Miho whispered in Yuna's ear, "Do you ever regret answering that job posting?" Yuna thought about everything that had happened, the fear, the confusion, the unexpected joy. She thought about how she'd walked into an interview and walked out with a contract that changed her life. "Not for a second," she whispered back. "Best job interview ever." And as they swayed together under the lights, surrounded by people who loved them, Yuna realized that sometimes the best things in life come from the most unexpected places. Sometimes you walk into an interview and walk out with your future, even if it takes a year to realize it. Their love story hadn't started with love at first sight or dramatic declarations. It had started with a business transaction, with practicality and mutual benefit. But it had grown into something real, something worth more than any contract could promise. As Miho spun her across the dance floor, Yuna caught sight of the real wedding band on her finger, simple gold with an inscription inside that read, "From contract to forever." And she knew that forever was exactly what she wanted.